there's something that that person is processing differently than you or I might.
Hmm.
And when we really go to do the work to go long term, everybody has to be involved in that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's not just like, oh, you know, my child, go fix that kid and
Hmm.
then return them when they're
Hmm.
done. It's not that way. It's if we don't change all of it, the family dynamics and all the pieces. So, and that's the big challenge. And that's why, or like what you're doing, the the best path to long-term recovery is the family unit and
Hmm.
the community. And when I use that family, it's not just the biological family,
Of
it's
course.
your chosen family, who your community is. And that's where the real work flourishes.
Welcome to the Four Peaks Parents Podcast with your host, Thomas Miller. I am so excited to introduce everyone to Scott Apgar. He is just an amazing guy. I mean, let's just start there. He's also from New York. He's a New Yorker. And he is a SME in the space, a subject matter expert. Anybody who is in the behavioral health field knows Scott because Scott has been representing so many great programs across his career, originally from the fashion industry, right? Kind of
Yes,
interesting,
yes.
right? Interesting. A lot of similarities there. And then a dad, of course, and of course, a husband. So,
Mhm.
welcome, Scott. So excited that we're going to dive into the benefits of long term recovery. We're going to talk a lot about what you've seen, some do's and don'ts, some goods and bads along the way of what parents have or haven't done to support their young adults treatment in your journey as a professional in the space. And also, Scott has given me the permission to volunteer that he is in long term recovery as well. So,
Thank you,
welcome,
Thomas.
Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and the very kind words, and I appreciate your support and our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you've been doing this for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
10 years, and you've been at different places, right? So, just shout
Mhm.
out really quick, where are you working now?
So I am with a program out of Boulder, Colorado named Choice House.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I've been there. It's great. It's wonderful. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is this idea of long-term recovery, right? So for
mhm,
parents listening, and listen, for any parent out there listening, I used to run a group for 8 years, and there is no exact one way, right? So if you're hearing
mhm,
this and we're talking about long-term recovery, don't lose hope and be dismayed because your loved one just went to their first NA or AA meeting, or maybe just went and detox, which detox, right? There's no real treatment there. They're getting, maybe medically stabilized. However, anything, right, is better than nothing, and
mhm.
anything is a start. So please hear
Beautiful.
this. Yeah, please hear this as an ideal option, right? Because there's a lot of research around why long-term recovery works, right, versus short-term fixes, and we can circumnavigate a lot of pain and potentially create the best conditions, right, vis-a-vis long-term recovery. So we're going to talk a lot about what that is today. But again, parents listening, please, 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 especially with the holidays around the corner, never ever
Mhm.
lose hope. So if you
Yeah.
could, Scott, in your view, right, what is long-term recovery? Why is that important, and why does that matter?
Well, I'm gonna start with, to me, long-term recovery is 24 hours
Mm-hmm.
because it is really a one day at a time program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we are in nature very prone to looking back and projecting forward and forgetting where we are right now. So
Mm.
when we look back, we deal with the resentments and the anger, and when we look forward, we're in the fear piece, and
Mm.
that kind of blinds us from being centered in the moment. And most folks in recovery will tell you that it is trying to stay present, for the next 5 minutes, for the next
Mm-hmm.
hour, for
Mm-hmm.
today.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do today what I did yesterday, then I can get another day.
Mm-hmm.
And my experience has been, yeah, before you realize it, you've got a month, you got 6 months, I had a year, and April 15th this past year was 24 years, and I'm shocked. I don't but it's one day at a time, and remember, just to be teachable each day.
I think that's such a great point. Having worked with teens and tweens and young adults since 2000, I'm getting old. Holy crap!
Mhm.
I would never ever try to make a sale around long-term recovery or sobriety for life, right? I always say a very similar kind of approach or tact and tone, which is like, how do we win this afternoon, right? How can we
Mhm,
win the evening? What does that
mhm,
look like, right? Win the
mhm,
next hour even. So I love that idea of trying to meet someone where they're at and just looking at how they can stay present and create a corrective emotional experience or a moment of change or anything in the next hour, because it
mhm.
is so overwhelming. You know it personally. And never ever could you have imagined you'd hit 24 years if someone came to you in active addiction and tried to sell you this thing called, right, sobriety. You would not have been buying at that point in time, right?
And, Thomas, on the flip of that, I realize how precious it is too, that it all could go away in a moment with,
Hmm.
a couple of bad decisions.
Hmm.
And, that's why the simple tools that have worked for me from the beginning, I still work. And, we don't have to complicate it. It's pretty simple.
Hmm. Yeah, speak to that. Tell our listeners more.
Well,
What for you is the simplicity of active recovery, let's call it.
I try to say, big God, big you, little me. I try
Mm,
to keep my ego in check and right sized. I
mm,
do that in different tools. I do make meetings. I do have a sponsor. I do work a program. I have a program of prayer meditation that I do. And I look at what I do each day, and I'm not perfect by no means. I can do some, as we like to say, 10, 11, and 12 steps in
mhm,
my life. But
mhm,
there are days when, somebody in front of me doesn't use their blinker
mhm.
and I can lose my, my
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
craziness because I can be so self centered or such.
Mhm. And that
I
comes
think,
out that comes out for me every time I'm on the LIE and I'm visiting my
mhm,
mother. So,
mhm. Well, and
as a Long Islander, who has a Sicilian background, I know the, fangula very well,
and you know what's
very well.
funny? My
Yeah.
parents moved off Long Island in 1966 because of traffic,
Oh,
quote
yeah.
unquote.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's gotten no better.
No, it has not. The HOV lane, maybe, whatever the hell you're allowed to ride in the HOV lane, maybe slightly better. Um, I love all the stories of people who this is a very well. We gotta broaden our podcast. So we're not being so Long Island centric, but for anyone
Mhm,
out there from Long Island, you know about these stories of people who are driving with like dummies
mhm. Yeah.
as in like the passenger seat to be able to ride in the HOV lane at the major peak hours. Too funny. Yeah.
That's a perfect jumping point,
Good segue.
because for me, it's how can I get over? How can I get around? How can I
Yep.
get under? How can I always connive or manipulate
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
scheme to beat the system?
Mhm.
And, right now, I had a therapist the other day say to me, just be in the school of fish. Don't be
Mm.
the shark.
Mm.
Be just keep, and whatever that metaphor of school of fish is, your community, and that can
Mhm.
be, you and your partner, that can be your family, that can be your work, but just keep moving with the school. And I understand, like, I can be a shark, I can be that predator.
Mhm.
I don't want to be. So how do
Mhm.
I address that? How do I keep recentering myself?
Mhm. Mhm. It's amazing how keep it simple, stupid. So many of the adages from AA are so helpful. Keep it green, right? One day
Hmm.
at a time.
Hmm.
It's amazing. They're almost so they're like almost so brilliant and simplistic that that's why we have such a hard time with them, because consistency beats intensity any day of the
Hmm.
week, right? And you play that
Hmm.
out, the positive compound effect over time, and then you have poof, 24 years. That doesn't mean you don't have asshole moments, as I certainly
Hmm.
do as well.
Hmm.
I used to have a guy who would come in and tell his story, as a buddy of mine, and it's kind of similar to what Steve-O talks a lot about, but he would come to the parents when I used to run this group for parents who had a loved one in active addiction, which went on for 8 years. Shout out to the Strength in Numbers group if you're anyone listening. And he would say, the great thing about AA for him was that he got clean, he got sober, he got his life back, but then he realized he's an asshole.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then there's all that work, right? which
Hmm.
which again, but it's layers, and it's like you build the courage and the grit and the resiliency to then face that next door, right? And
Yeah.
each time you're amalgamating, right? obviously new neural pathways, you're amalgamating new behaviors, new choices, you're rubbing elbows with, people who are still in the disease that keeps it proximal for you, but also people that are normalizing that this is actually a hopeful path and there's in fact this entire life out there for you, right?
I'm going to circle back to your analogy there about driving in cars. I have learned that in my mind, speed limits shouldn't apply to me,
Mm,
that I'm above that. I have
mm,
learned that, the HOV lane should be okay for me to be in, even if I'm not following the universal law of two or three
mhm,
people in the car.
mhm,
So what I have accomplished is there's this thing called cruise control,
mhm,
and I set the cruise control
mhm.
and I let it go. And then I maintain it because let's face it, I need my license. I need to do it.
Yeah,
So there's a power greater than myself.
right.
I don't know why, Thomas, when I come up to a red light, I think I have to be the first one off the line because don't you know? Like, and it's like, how many times intellectually I can hear that
Mhm,
speeding doesn't get you there faster
mhm,
and all the facts, but still, that's how I'm wired. So I use these things. I use these tools. And the great thing in recovery, what they tell you is, you go from holding that steering wheel like this and those hitting the brakes and hitting the gas and hitting the brakes to
mhm,
letting it go. And then all of a sudden you move over to the passenger seat. And then all of a sudden you're looking out the passenger's window. And then over time, there's even these moments that I'm the car and I'm not even driving it. I'm just on
mhm,
the road.
mhm,
And,
mhm.
I use that analogy because it really helps me understand it. It
Yeah,
really cruise control is a higher power. Now that doesn't mean it's my God and but it
of
is a
course,
power greater than
of course.
myself that keeps me going the speed limit.
Sure, sure. But what I like about that is that you're saying there's times I recognize I don't have the internal limit setting abilities, and I'm going to, right, be okay with letting go and allowing this external, device to support me. And I think to pivot to parents,
Mhm,
what's so hard for parents sometimes to understand is their loved one,
mhm,
because, and I say this a lot to particularly a lot of the families that are a part of the Four Peaks Parents Program that have a young adult and active addiction.
mhm,
I say, they're an alien in a way, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't, of course, love and identify and support and be empathic and compassionate and have, which they learn all through the program, ways to, maintain an honest, open stance, as well as also maintain, firm and benevolent limits and boundaries there. So, but the idea of trying to understand the mind of someone in active addiction. I had a speaker who used to come in and talk to parents way back when in another program that I was a part of, and he said, I'm really grateful, for my recovery and everything's great. He goes, but there's still moments I think about how great it was to wake up and have a cold one in a hot shower while smoking. And like all the parents were like, "Ugh," and it's like you will never identify with that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because you don't have these baked in, emotional memories and a million other olfactory memories and all these
mhm,
all these things every time that person showers. So I think it's very helpful. Of course, I'm not saying in any way to detach from your loved one, move toward your loved one, build a deep, 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 deep connection, and always, always, which is so hard for the families I work with. I always say, you can't run toward and run away from the same thing at the same
mm,
time. That's why they're always in conflict. But how do we move towards someone intentionally regulated and be open and avail ourselves of the relationship and never threaten or consequence the relationship, but also at the same time take care of ourselves? How do you see parents
okay.
struggling to connect with the young adults at Choice or at, other programs that you've worked at?
I'll bring it right to my own self. So my sons are 31 and 32 years old, and throughout my father experience, there are times significantly that I can see when I felt like I'm your father, damn it, and you do what I
Mm,
say.
mm,
And anytime I've ever said that or acted that way, Thomas, it has blown up in my face and only
mhm,
driven them further away.
mhm,
I tell you, it happened yesterday with my older son in a conversation that he's pushing back on doing something which I think will be very good for him.
Mhm.
And I consciously kept saying, "Scott, don't tell him what to do."
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
even said to him, "It's your decision. I'll support
Mhm.
you either way."
Mhm.
And I listened and I tried to, and I gave him my experience on a few things.
Mhm.
It took him about, I don't know, 6, 8 hours, and he texted me back. He says, "I'm doing it, and I have it scheduled for the 17th."
Mhm.
And it was like, great.
Mhm.
He came to that.
Mhm.
Um, Supporting and having them come to, no matter what age they're at,
Mhm.
there is really power in that. But I
Mhm.
also can tell you, as a parent, it's very easy to helicopter and feel like you have to come in and fix it or cure
Mhm.
it, or
Mhm.
throw down that
Mhm.
ace of hearts that says, "You're doing what I say, damn
Mhm.
it."
Mhm.
And
And
that's just not worth it.
well, I mean, the first thing you said, I was thinking like jokingly, like, "Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm also a father who's threatened my child,
Mhm,
my way or the highway. Hi, my name's Thomas. I've been a control freak in
mhm.
moments and uber rigid, and then had to let go and let God or let a higher power and realize, like, yeah, the kid needs to own it. It's so funny. It's so funny. My son, I won't shout out too much here about you, buddy, but he refuses to wear a hat because, of course, he
Mhm,
has great hair, and
mhm.
he doesn't want to mess up his hair. Um, but the shitty thing about that, because it's funny, anyone who knows me knows that we were from the Berkshires. We raised our kids definitely to, skin their knees. To They were hiking. There's content and videos of our boys hiking at like freaking 2 and 4, and not helicopter parents. That being said, when he gets sick, I get sick because I
Mhm,
drive him to school every day. And so, like,
mhm,
it's like one of these things where in the Four Peaks Parents Program, one of the things we talk about all the time is the circle of control. Is this in your control? Is it out of
mhm,
control? What is the
mhm.
right altitude to fly at? What's the right tact and tone? And it's one of these things where we're kind of merged on it because I am by proxy going to get sick every time he freaking gets sick. But it's such a hard thing when you're talking about someone who could die,
Mhm,
right? That's what's so hard, and I
mhm,
big up to any parent out there who either I've worked with, or is in the trenches right now, is in the fight, and your loved one has co-occurring issues, mental health and addiction, and they're in active addiction. I mean, the I said this the other day to a family, like, you know, in her control, this mom that I'm working with, is to shut off her phone or at least silence it at a particular
mhm,
hour because her daughter is bombarding her at 1, 2 in the morning, always in crisis, to the point that now she's, of course, being affected and she's going down, right? She's now allowing her daughter to perpetrate upon her. She's by proxy, right? The victim, she's rescuing her. And then guess what? She's on some level persecuting against herself the next day. And it's a
mhm.
vicious cycle. So hard, so hard. So my heart always goes out to families when we're talking about put the oxygen mask on yourself, right? Step
Yeah,
away,
that's a
let
good one.
allow, right? Allow your kid to fail forward, because that failing forward isn't always toward success. It can be toward obviously an overdose, a horrible consequence, a life altering circumstance. So difficult. So how do you help families you know, figure out the right altitude to fly at, or what their role is and what their role isn't with the young men that are at a choice or
Well, you
throughout
said
your
it,
career?
and it's a real delicate balance.
Yeah.
And I will let I most of my time I'm talking to a loved one, a mother, father, brother, sister, husband, wife.
Yep.
And I do a lot of active listening, and I can offer suggestions, but it's very hard to point out somebody enabling
Mhm.
and not have them take it defensively.
Mhm.
But at some point, we owe the person to say the hard things. And
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
you develop a relationship enough that you can say the hard things.
Mhm.
And just yesterday, I said to a mother, this son who's 31, hasn't had a job, has
Mhm.
multiple college degrees. He She pays for his Tesla, she's paying
Yep.
for his
Yep.
apartment, and he gets a
I think that's my
$10,000 month.
client. I think that
Yeah.
I
He
think
he gets a $10,000 month,
Oh,
allowance,
wow.
and
How do I
this
sign up?
Yeah, and he literally was thrown out of his 3rd rehab on Monday, and he intentionally goes
I
in there
wonder
and
why.
blows it up. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
and, she's calling me for more recommendations of where to go,
Mhm.
and I was like, "I don't know what to tell you," and because he's gonna kill himself. Like,
Mhm.
he's going to,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, but the way he uses and he keeps ending up in an ER, and, and we don't have to go into all those
Of
problems of
course.
what's happening,
Yeah.
but, I literally had to have the conversation with her of like, nothing's changing if nothing changes, and you're
Mhm.
enabling him. So, I love when you said, there are things that you could do that are within your control, but it's the hardest thing for a parent to step away and turn off, or let their loved one struggle. But it's a really difficult dance,
And
and I
and
think,
yeah. No, please finish.
no, I just think that if you're willing to hang in there and be and listen and help them and point out some things, because as a parent, there are blind spots and we
Mhm.
don't even see it.
Mhm.
And that's kind of part of my job, is to point that out to you sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the thing too that where parents go to, like when they hear someone say something like you just said, or they hear me say, you have to step away, you have to allow, right, this process to ensue. You can't keep throwing pillows under them. I was telling
Mhm.
the other day, this mom, I think we have literally the same client because this person is in their 30s and is very mollycoddled, and there is no incentive for change. I mean, I was saying, why would they change, right? When
Mhm.
they are not feeling, right, financially, the hit of their disease. They're not feeling, even on many levels, social, emotionally, physiologically. I mean, yes, they're feeling that too, but the family is, oh my God, papering over a bazillion cracks.
Mhm.
And someone can, of course, OD. Someone
Mhm.
can, of course, die. Someone can. I think it's hard for families to realize that someone can also die, right, in a multi-million-dollar home, right? Someone
Mhm.
can also die in a beautiful, bed.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, families, when they think about what you're saying or what's being suggested, they immediately think tough love equals detachment, and it
Mm.
doesn't. And I always
Mhm.
use the
Mhm.
analogy that, we have to immediately look at what we can and cannot endorse. And you
Mhm.
talked about nothing changes if nothing changes. Um, Everything Changes, I think, is written by Beverly Conyers. It's a great
Mhm.
book about her journey with her daughter. And when you begin to change one thing, similarly to what we talked about earlier, can you win that hour? Can you win that day? Take it one day at
Mhm.
a time. You blink, and now you have a process that carries you. Your analogy earlier of the car, you're not even aware you're in a car because you've built this process that is bigger than
Yes.
you and keeps ensuing. And so I always use the analogy of like, offer to go to lunch, let's say on a Sunday or a Saturday with your loved one. If they show up under the influence, you still held space for the relationship. If they don't show up under the influence and you actually have a decent conversation and connect, great. If they begin to try to barter, prop you up, try to manipulate, they try to, extract this or that, right? That's where we have to take our internal temperature. We have to trust our gut. We have to not be a doormat. We have to love them with boundaries. We have to support them always. I'm the biggest fan of always having heart-centered approaches, always having the light on, always, right,
Mhm.
keeping the door open. But there is a point, like you said, where it is not healthy and it's not helpful, and
Mhm.
it's actually prolonging a brain disease that someone will never know what their rock bottom is. They'll
Mm.
never know. That
Yeah.
idea of waiting till rock bottom, as you know, doesn't always work out that way.
Mhm.
Well, and we as parents, we as, a community, cannot contrive recovery. We can't just, flip a switch and do it, but we can create conditions that are putting our loved one in a position toward hopefully change, or
Mhm.
we can keep them right in the stasis where we're maintaining the disease. And I think that's what you're trying to help this person realize, is
Yes.
that it's homeostatic for them not to change. There
Mhm.
isn't much of a driver and incentive.
Mhm.
So what would you suggest that parents do to support long-term recovery and to think about, not only treatment again, because like we've talked about, there's a million things out there, and I never say to someone this is the only way. And however, we do know what a thin versus a robust relapse prevention plan or recovery plan looks like, right? So,
Mhm.
how would you, what would you recommend or support families do to try to help a loved one achieve long term recovery?
Thank you. There's 2 things I would say. One is we don't fix people.
Mm-hmm.
We support them and we see change. But so often moms, dads, brothers, sisters think that, they call and they say, "Hey, fix my brother, fix
Mm-hmm.
my child,
Mm-hmm.
fix my,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's not, and yes, getting on the path of recovery for that loved one is important and it's the first step, but the real work comes in the family dynamics
Mm-hmm.
because this is a family disease. This is, in my experience, Thomas, this all always goes back to some type of childhood adverse experience, some type of trauma. And I know we throw that word around in a big
Mm-hmm.
way, but there's something that that person is processing differently than you or I might.
Mm-hmm.
And when we really go to do the work to go long term, everybody has to be involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like, oh, you know, my child, go fix that kid and
Mm-hmm.
then return them when they're
Mm-hmm.
done. It's not that way. It's if we don't change all of it, the family dynamics and all the pieces. So, and that's the big challenge. And that's why, or like what you're doing, the the best path to long-term recovery is the family unit
Mm-hmm.
and the community. And when I use that family, it's not just the biological family,
Of
it's
course.
your chosen family, who your community is. And that's where the real work flourishes.
And the thing that I'm not in recovery. Everyone who knows me knows that. However, I've been doing this crap for, I don't know, 20 something, 24 years or something. So it was funny when I used to be the director of an LGBT program in White Plains and Yonkers.
Mhm,
The All of the volunteers were queer identified, LGBTQ, and they were like, "We're going to give you like the pass, like you get the
mhm,
you got."
mhm,
And then when I was working with this business coach to found our center, my wife and I found it in the Berkshires, and we went through a whole business coaching. Big shout out to the Small Business Development Center. They're like, you get an MBA from the street. So my whole life, I always get these like, so I get like a little recovery, whatever, something. But I obviously will never know exactly what that's like to be a person in active addiction. But I do know to the extent I can know. And of course, I know what I know and know what I don't know. But I've seen how traumatic it is for everyone. And like you said,
mhm,
it is a family disease. And
mhm,
I always use the analogy of if you go and you hit the sheep or the crescent moon of the mobile above an infant, the whole mobile moves. And you're
mhm.
absolutely correct that the whole mobile moves, even if there wasn't something systemic, right,
Mhm,
that created some of this, there were still cracks in that system. Right.
mhm,
And I think COVID found the cracks too. I think addiction finds the cracks, right? And
mhm,
what an opportunity for families to avail themselves of a change process where they can come out and allow the scraping of the recovery work that hopefully their loved ones doing to also be some internal scraping in a good way. and
mhm,
and I know families that I just have this family that literally told me I saved, which it wasn't I, it was a we, their marriage. The program
mhm,
did. The program
mhm.
forced them, the Four Peaks Parents Program, to look at these systemics, these unhealthy
Mm.
norms.
Going to
um,
work.
Going to work, right? I mean, I
Mhm,
talk every week. There's probably not a week I don't say forming, storming, norming, performing. We can't perform if
mhm,
we don't storm, create new norms, right? And
mhm,
go through that. This forming phase, as you know, that you've seen many families, I'm sure, that look great on the outside.
mhm,
So, for families listening to this, I think that's a really good point. And I use that a lot, that your loved one is the identified patient, right? But
mhm,
that doesn't mean they're the only patient. We all have to
mhm,
be willing to take a hard look at ourselves. My wife and I have been in couples therapy 3 times, might be a fourth. And each of those, we learned something.
mhm,
I came away with more insight, awareness, realize why I sleep on the couch sometimes. you know, you know, I probably will sleep on the couch a few more times. We've been together since '98. Holy crap! Married in 2004. So same thing. I've worked with my own therapist. So
Mhm,
you know, when you sell it like that, it's interesting. It will be very telling, right? What the family's reaction is. What do
mhm.
you usually hear when you're talking to them about this family disease concept? What
So
comes out for them?
it's so interesting because when that first connection happens, almost 100% everybody feels they're so unique and nobody's going to understand their
Right.
problem.
Right.
And what I will tell you, Thomas, is it is almost like you could check boxes.
Mhm.
Quite often, it is divorce. So
Mhm.
I might be talking to mother, but dad has got a new family, a girlfriend, but he's holding the insurance, and mother is the caretaker.
Mhm.
Next level, I consistently see there's an overachieving sibling and I'm
Mhm.
catching the underachieving
Sure.
sibling.
Sure.
For whatever the dynamics of the family,
Sure.
this child has learned that the positive affirmation is good, and this child has learned that the negative attention is good. Then I can tell you, I see so much adoption. I see so
Mhm.
much
Mhm.
same-sex marriage,
Mhm.
mixed
Mhm.
race marriage. Like it's
Mhm.
those things all kind of filter into it. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm saying that, whatever the childhood trauma is, you know, you might be the best co-parentings parents going and really working on the same page, but there's some type of trauma that hit that kid.
Mhm.
It could be the birth of the child. It could be, the death of the
Sure.
loved grandparent, whatever it
Sure.
is. But, those things are real to, that child.
Mhm.
So as you start to break this down, it really is a clear path. Um, and I think that's why we then start to rebuilding. And yes, first and foremost, let's get your child detoxed is the first step into a program that, we do have levels of care in our field that are
Mhm.
appropriate.
Mhm.
But ongoing, it is the relationships and where you're going to meet each other day by day. And I said it before and I'll say it again, that you get to the point that you can communicate and have
Mhm.
those hard conversations,
Mhm. Mhm.
to express feelings. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I would say that just where I stand right now, I do see a crisis happening with young men
Mhm.
in this world
Mhm.
right now of
Mhm.
detachment,
Mhm.
of that they are really isolated. And you mentioned COVID before, it didn't serve a lot of people well.
Mhm. Mhm.
But, for me and for Choice House, our guy is ruptured either scholastically or by
Mhm.
career.
Mhm.
He is kind of wilted down to he's got a failure to live. And he just doesn't know how to do it because he thinks the relationships via his phone or technology are relationships,
Sure.
and they're not.
Sure.
They're it's technology right now is this beast that is so untethered. Be it
Mhm.
AI, be it gaming,
Mhm.
be it
Mhm.
gambling, be it
Sure.
be it the porn addictions.
Sure.
All these things are coming really hard.
Sure.
And I'll just say this, my experience is women tend to talk to women tend to talk to their mothers, women tend to talk to therapists much more than men.
Mhm.
Men don't. They hold it in, they bottle it up, and they end up down on mom and dad's couch in the bottom in the cellar playing games.
Mhm.
And
There's nothing wrong with that tangent. I just finished. I feel like I should work for, or this guy should send me. Forgetting even the author's name, should send me at least a bar of dark chocolate or something. But I keep talking about this book of Boys and Men. It was really great because it
mhm,
looks at the why are young men falling behind, and it looks
mhm,
at the systemics, and it's sad because um, uh, these conversations get politicized, and when
mhm,
the left gets involved, it becomes you hear things like toxic masculinity, and you hear a denial actually of the biological causes of
mhm,
why boys at times are struggling academically in a school system that is not very experientially learner driven, and or we know from the research that kids are going to be more physically aggressive by the time of the age of 4. That doesn't mean that they're on a path to having conduct disorder and being sociopaths, but those are
mhm,
things we should look at. And then when the right gets involved, it becomes about a return to, these traditional family values, and then the conversation basically ends. So when
Mhm.
you have politics involved in things that really are actual issues, sociological issues, there are reasons why. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not in any way here acting like women don't have way more glass ceilings than men do. That being said, these are not mutually exclusive discussions. You can
Mhm.
have a conversation about the barriers that people of color face, the barriers that women face, and then the some of the issues or current issues as to why failing to launch we're seeing huge, right,
Mhm.
for young men, because again, they struggle to build community.
Mhm.
I'm reading also Viktor Frankl's right now, A Man's Search for Meaning, and
Mhm. Great
without a
book.
why, you're basically
Mhm.
have no shot in life. So if you don't have a why, if you are, living your life vicariously in VL, not RL, right? So everything's virtual life, not real life, and you struggle, right, to basically build community. And on top of that, there's over scaffolding of parents, which I'm always
Mhm.
trying to fight against. And I had a guest on, Dr. Jack Hinman, a couple episodes ago, and he was talking about the over scaffolding and the dearth of real life experiences can exacerbate, why we're seeing potentially ASD diagnoses. It's not that,
Mm.
screens cause autism. There's no RFK moment here, people. I'm not going viral for that. But at any rate, the point is that, they're compound effects. And if you are not right connecting with other young men,
Mhm.
don't know how to put your needs out there, don't know how to be, vulnerable, right? Vulnerability is an act of strength and courage.
Beautiful.
You're gonna struggle. And if you don't have a purpose, and on top of that, you see someone who is a bazillionaire, right, standing in front of a Bugatti at 22, and you carry imposter syndrome and shame, and then you have that $10,000 a month, let's say, thing, which I don't think every young man does, obviously. It's going to be hard. And the thing that I really like about choice, and I like also about 12 step, is that's the whole freaking point, is
Mhm.
that we're wired for connection, and recovery
Yes.
is really about relationships. It's
Mhm.
really about connecting. It's really
Mhm.
about building a community.
Mhm.
That's what it's really about. It's not about, we don't do well in
Mhm.
isolation,
Mhm.
ever.
Absolutely, that is it. So, we are a 90-day program where we're small, we're 22 beds, but we're bringing guys together so they build relationships. And we are so kind of set up that we are doing a lot of experiential, a lot of outdoor activities together to build this team spirit. Because you're right, the guy is isolated and he doesn't know how to communicate. He doesn't know how to take rejection. And from that first part to our second phase of our program, which again is structured living with clinical piece, we are really like an 8 to 12 month program.
Hmm.
Most of our guys then have built this real community that they're, because as I said, they're not coming to us with attachments. They don't have wives or kids or
Hmm.
such,
Hmm.
that they're really saying, wow, I've got, 35 really close friends now. I'm going to stay here. I like this. And that's why we see such a robust alumni program with us. And it is community, is it? The connection, is it? That is the key. And you said it so perfectly, Thomas, that when I isolate, and the average age of what that guy is isolating is ticking up higher and
Oh
higher.
my God.
So we see it now in the 30s, of these guys have, and the term I keep using is failure to live, because they really don't know what to do.
Hmm. No, I think failure to live is exactly it. I'd say failure to leave parents, or failure to live, or failure to jump into the next chapter, because you know I always say, Freud used to say, and I won't be too crude, because, but Freud would say, someone's healthy if they can work, laugh, love, and play. And if you
Hmm.
really think about that, that's a really good kind of rubric for evaluating, is someone,
Yeah.
healthy or not. And
Mm.
if you're not working and don't have a sense of industry, you don't have a why, you're not going to feel
Hmm.
great about yourself. If you don't know how
Hmm.
to laugh, that means potentially you have depression, anxiety, you have a restricted range of affect, you're not really, in a good way, Velcroed to all the great opportunities that exist. If you don't know how to play, same thing, you probably don't have friends, right? And friendships are paramount for all people, but especially
Mhm.
young adults and especially men. Having a group of men that you could connect with. And I was saying this family the other day. I started working with this family, and they have a neurodivergent kiddo. And when he's doing something that is prescribed, when he's in an athletic arena, or there's a very clear, delineated out social norms, social rules, he does really well. But when he has to walk into a cafeteria where there's like crazy, overstimulated, which is even overwhelming for me, and there are no social rules, that's very hard. So Choice House or any, long-term recovery program, or even AA or NA, there is an actual plan there. And if you look
Mhm.
at why young adults are drawn toward video games, it's very linear.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very linear, and their character is evolving
Mhm.
vis-a-vis the game, of the structure of the game, while they themselves are not. There's a dearth
Mhm.
of their own social interpersonal skills. There's a dearth of their own grit, resiliency, coping skills, bandwidth, while their character is actually growing. And so if
Mhm.
we could just flip it, right, and put them in a
Mhm.
position, which is what I know Choice does, and other long-term recovery programs, that's the opportunity, is that, hey,
Mhm.
I can go mountain biking. I can go whitewater rafting. I can
Mhm.
actually get dopamine hits. I can get high metaphorically without drugs. Literally, I
Mhm.
can be high in the top of a mountain in the Rockies, or I could be,
Mhm.
high skiing, whatever that is. And I also am of use, like the
Mhm.
ability to be of
Yes.
use to the next person, and
Yeah,
each one
within my
being
team, with my group.
right, right.
Mhm.
We all
That's
need a
a
band of brothers. I mean,
yeah.
and going through trials and tribulations. I mean, that's why Spartan races, high rocks, all those things they're beyond taking off. They're huge because we've lost that in
Yeah.
society. We've lost, these healthy rituals, these passages. That's why in wilderness, when I was doing wilderness, we would mark the phases from each. We had a totemic philosophy, so they started a turtle to bear
Mhm.
to wolf to hawk. We would have massive celebrations because
Mhm.
that's lost. That's
Mhm.
lost for a lot of, especially young men, but
Mhm.
definitely young people in general.
Yeah. So I wanna ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Jay Kelly yet?
Jay
Geor
Kelly?
Yeah,
No,
George Clooney and Adam Sandler.
I have not. I want
Just came
to.
out.
Just came out. It's a
Mhm.
Focus Features, right?
It's on Netflix. It's already being, garnering awards and up for things.
Does Adam
Um,
Sandler play it straight?
Adam Sandler plays it straight. He
Is
is
my That's
Jake.
my favorite. Whenever he Punch Drunk Love is one of the
Mhm.
best movies I've ever seen on
Mhm.
actual a mental health disorder of anxiety. He does That's the
Mhm.
best because they most movies get it wrong. And then Uncut Gems is just like
There you go.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, you will wanna watch this one because George Clooney plays a aging movie star,
Okay.
and kind of the setup is that the movie's moving towards his lifetime achievement.
Mm,
And, he as he's going through this, he realizes that, he has a daughter that absolutely hates him. He has another daughter that wants nothing to do with him. He's had 2 failed marriages, and the people that he thinks are his friends are really all on his payroll.
mm.
And what I will tell you is my wife and I watched it this past weekend. At the end, they're sitting there in
Don't
this
ruin
lifetime
it. Don't
I'm not
ruin it.
gonna ruin it for you. I'm not gonna ruin it for you. They're sitting there watching this he's watching this, montage of his
Mhm,
life
mhm,
of in movies, and, Adam Sandler's next to him, and I'm crying. I'm
mhm.
literally tears are coming down my face, and my wife the movie ends, and my wife's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And I say,
Wow.
"Wait a minute, what how did you understand that?" And she
Right.
says, "Yeah, that he's a narcissist," and then because his last
Yeah,
line is,
yeah,
"Roll it again."
yeah.
And she's like, "He's just so self-centered and blah, blah, blah,"
Right,
and like
right.
and I'm like, "No, no, I
Yeah.
see it as he he looks at what a waste of a life and that I've only worked and I've dropped my
Mhm,
family
mhm,
and, all these things that we're talking about here of how I've misdirected so much." And to me, it was like it cut so close of like, oh,
mm,
like, wow, what so when to try kind of tie this all up in a bow, how can I make the world a little better today? Because
Mhm.
I was a taker, taker, taker. You know, we said it
Mhm.
earlier of how can I get over or under or beat you?
Mhm. Mhm.
And now it's like I just want to be a giver. I want to be a
Mhm.
giver. I want to give
Yeah.
back to this world and make it a
Yeah.
little better. Just and that might just be my own little space in
That's
Brooklyn, New
your
York
that's
today.
I'm not Jewish, but and please I can get an email from someone who is, but isn't that a mitzvah?
Yeah, being
Yeah,
a mitzvah.
right?
But you know,
Um,
I also say it's
or
just being a
or
nice
to
guy.
I'll do another one because I used to work for Westchester Jewish Community Services. Shout out to WJCS, great
Hmm.
not for profit in Westchester County, and I learned all these great expressions and holidays and things. Tikkun olam, right, which is to heal
Hmm.
the world, I believe.
Hmm.
Again, please fact check me. Any people out there listening, and happy Hanukkah to folks. Well, I'm sure by the time this releases, the holidays will have passed. But the other thing I just want to say or shout you out for is that you do that. And I think what you do, which is really nice whenever I've connected a family with you, is yes, you're a living, breathing example of what's possible. 24 years, that's great and all. No, however, you are so warm, you are so approachable, and you inject hope. And I think that um, the thing about, again, the families that have gone through my program, whether their marriage is now intact because they realize they went through a war. I mean, when you have, as you've seen it, you've seen this movie, a kiddo, maybe bipolar, maybe, like disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, whatever it is, oppositional defiant ADHD, the acronyms go on, plus active addiction, possibly access to, maybe borderline, cutting
Hmm.
disorder, whatever, eating disorder. Um, it's very hard to not lose yourself. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like Stranger Things with the upside down. And the families that have gone through that, of course, there's vicarious trauma. And when you talk and connect with families, you do such a great job of inviting the whole person, letting them back
Mm,
up the U-Haul
thank you.
truck. But also, again, you're such a no nonsense person, which I greatly respect and appreciate, because this is a disease that is
Hmm.
progressive, that is chronic, that is potentially fatal. It's also treatable. And the
Hmm.
longer we allow it, those ruts, which is what neural pathways are in someone's brain, they're harder and harder to get out of. It's just like when
Hmm.
you're stuck in the mud, the more that you're rutting deeper into the earth as you're trying to spin your wheels and get out, it's that much harder. And
Hmm.
as you know, at the end of this movie, you talked about this person's legacy, right, is more about failed moments or cost of inaction than it is about having created moments of truth or moments of hope or moments of healing. And I'm so grateful that you're out there doing all the great work you do. Please shout out what Choice, how folks can get in touch with you or learn more about Choice.
Well, thank you. And listen, that's right back to you, Thomas. You know, we do this together. Why, when you asked me if I would come onto your podcast, I've learned I say yes. I am a man of service. I believe, and goes all the way back to a little old Italian man at
Mhm.
a mill in Italy, probably 35 years ago, said, "One hand washes the other, and together they wash the face."
Mhm.
And that's been the simple philosophy that I have. But
Mhm.
so thank you. Choice House is a residential program for 18 to 30-ish men. It is a 90-day program. It is in Boulder, Colorado. My contact information is easily accessible. I am on social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn. Thomas, you can always pass my information to anyone that needs it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, I'm here to keep my hand extended to anybody that needs it, be it mother, father, brother, sister, husband, wife. You know, I have a lot of experience in the adolescent world. I have experience in the adult world, and I've built good relationships because there are good people in this field that want to try to help.
And it's all about people. It's all about I always say cultures wins championships for sports teams and definitely for treatment programs because it's very hard for a lot of my families who are in crisis, and then they go on a website and it looks
Hmm.
amazing. But please, make sure that folks reach out to me directly. I have an amazing network. Scott has an amazing network. We could have a network off. You probably beat me, but
Yeah.
mine is pretty freaking good too. And it's very difficult to be in your shoes. My heart goes out to anyone, of course, again, especially with the holidays. This is probably going to air after the holidays, but anyone that is by proxy, because like we've talked about here, it is a family disease that affects
Hmm.
everybody. Everybody wears a hat without realizing it. Everybody unconsciously, right, is playing a role, not
Hmm.
necessarily in causing it. You did not cause it. This is not about
Hmm.
picking up the shame stick or hitting yourself
Hmm.
over the head, but we do have to look at what we can do to enact and agitate change. And if anyone is questioning, is my kiddo, right, potentially struggling with mental health or addiction, please go to the fourpeaksparents.com website. There's a free newsletter. You can see and listen to all the previous episodes, as well as you can book a free discovery call with me, and we'll jump on that call and put our heads together and see if it's the right fit, and see if I can't support you on a pathway to wellness and build a life for you and your loved one that both of you can be proud of. So thank you,
Great.
Scott. Thank you
Absolutely,
so much for your
Thomas.
time. And to everyone out there listening, please take care of yourself and keep
Have a great day.
moving forward. Take care. Bye.